You had been waiting for that moment for months. The trip you planned carefully, that existed as a promise on a calendar for nearly a year. The place you chose because you always wanted to go there, not because someone posted about it or because it appeared on a list. A choice of your own, personal, loaded with genuine expectation. And the day arrived. You were there. The place was exactly what you had imagined, perhaps even more. The right light, the right temperature. The feeling of finally leaving the place where you always were. And at some point, over dinner, on a walk, on a quiet night with the window open, a question arrived that had not been invited. Is this it? Not as declared disappointment, as a tone, the subtle difference between what you expected to feel and what you were actually feeling. A kind of gentle estrangement, as if you were slightly outside of your own experience, watching it instead of living it fully. You came back. You showed the photos. The photos were beautiful. You smiled as you showed them. And you did not lie. It was good. It was real. It was yours. But the feeling that something had not fully closed remained. Quiet. Nameless. You cannot name what is missing. You only know, with a certainty that has no identifiable origin, that something is. This is not ingratitude. This is not an inability to appreciate what you have. This is not your problem. It is the system functioning exactly as it was designed to function. And this video exists to name that mechanism with the precision it deserves. There is a version of this moment that most people never say out loud. You achieve something meaningful, real, something that cost time, effort, choices you would not take back. And in the days that follow, sometimes in the hours that follow, you notice that the satisfaction did not arrive with the intensity you expected. That the feeling of "I made it" lasts less than the effort it took to get there. That you are already looking at the next level with the same hunger as before, as if what just happened were merely the authorization to want more. You do not talk about this, because it seems like ingratitude, because it seems like weakness, because everyone around you is waiting for you to celebrate. And you do celebrate. You know how to celebrate. You have learned to perform celebration with precision. But inside, there is a gap between what you built and what you expected to feel when you built it. That gap is real, and you are not alone in it. Studies on relative income and social comparison show that satisfaction depends less on what you achieve and more on whom you start comparing yourself to after the achievement. The higher the level of success, the more sophisticated the reference group becomes, and the greater the distance between what you expected to feel and what you actually feel. The mechanism amplifies with success. It does not diminish. What most people do not know, and what this video will name with precision, is that this gap is not a character flaw. It is the evidence of a mechanism, silent, structural, actively sustained by an environment that needs you to never close it completely. Let us observe how this mechanism operates in daily life, with the camera close enough to see the texture. You are in your early 30s or your 40s. You have worked. You have built things. Perhaps a career your parents would recognize as success. Perhaps a relationship that survived things that should have destroyed it. Perhaps a bank account that represents years of discipline. You have more than most people. You know that. You repeat it to yourself mentally when the gap appears, as if a logical argument could fill what experience does not fill, but it does not fill it. And you know it does not. You just keep trying because there is no other argument available. You go to a friend's birthday party. He just bought an apartment. You have an apartment, but his is larger or better located, or was bought with apparently less effort. You spend a pleasant evening. You talk, you laugh, you leave. But on Monday, without you having consciously decided anything, his apartment is operating as a silent reference in the back of your mind, not as declared envy, as an invisible measuring stick you did not choose to adopt but are using. You see someone's promotion on LinkedIn. You were also promoted last month, but their promotion is at a larger company, or with a title that sounds better. Or it came with a more polished story. The narrative they built for the post is more compelling than the narrative of yours. And you notice quickly, even before closing the app, that your promotion has recalibrated downward in the internal hierarchy you maintain without having chosen to maintain it. You did not do this on purpose. Nobody does. The environment organized it for you, and it expects you to process it as if it were exclusively your emotional responsibility to manage the outcome. There is a structure behind this. It has a name. and understanding it completely changes how you read your own dissatisfaction. The question this video poses is not how you can better appreciate what you already have. That would be the wrong question. And the answer would be self-help, which is not what is happening here. The correct question is more disturbing. Why was the comparison system that organizes your life built in such a way that genuine satisfaction is structurally undesirable within it? Not accidentally impossible, undesirable by design. To answer that with the precision the problem deserves, we need a philosopher who, decades before LinkedIn, Instagram, rankings, and engagement metrics existed, had already described with exactness the architecture of the problem you are living. Albert Camus, Algeria, 1942. A 28-year-old man publishes The Myth of Sisyphus, a dense, disturbing philosophical essay that poses a question most people never formulate out loud. If life does not offer the meaning you expect from it, what do you do with that empty space between what you expected and what you found? Camus was mapping something no one had named with that precision before: the absurd. The absurd for Camus is not suffering, it is not difficulty. It is something more precise and harder to name. It is the encounter, inevitable, permanent, irresolvable, between the human expectation of meaning and the silence of the world in the face of that expectation. You want things to make sense, for achieving something to bring satisfaction proportional to the effort, for arriving at the destination to mean having actually arrived somewhere that makes the arrival worthwhile. The world does not confirm this, not because it is cruel, but because it is not organized around your expectations. And the space between what you expect to feel and what you actually feel, that space is the absurd. To illustrate this condition, Camus turned to a character from Greek mythology, Sisyphus. Condemned by the gods to push an enormous boulder to the top of a mountain, watch it roll back to the starting point and begin again, eternally, without a possible arrival, without accumulation, without progress that persists. The punishment was not the pain of the effort. It was the awareness of the futility of the effort combined with the impossibility of stopping. And Camus' conclusion about Sisyphus is precisely the one that will recontextualize your dissatisfaction. Sisyphus must be imagined happy, not because the situation is good, not because the absurd is something to be celebrated, but because lucidity about the condition, seeing clearly what is happening, without illusion about an arrival that does not exist, is the only way to inhabit reality without being destroyed by it. A Sisyphus who knows the mechanism of his own condition has a kind of freedom that a Sisyphus who keeps hoping that this time the boulder will stay at the top will never have. What Camus did not live to see is that the 21st century built something the Camusian absurd had not foreseen, a system that not only fails to offer arrival, but that was actively engineered to prevent you from realizing there is no arrival. A system that fills every pause with new comparison before the absurd can settle in. That converts Sisyphus's boulder into a trophy, the eternal restart into a growth narrative, and the awareness of the futility of the push into an opportunity for personal optimization. Observe the mechanism with precision, because it is more sophisticated than it appears at first glance. You achieve something. In the moment immediately following the achievement, sometimes even before you have communicated to the world what happened, the environment already offers the next reference. The feed refreshes. Someone posts a slightly larger achievement in the same niche. The market publishes a ranking that positions what you did in relation to what others did. What was exceptional last week is the expected standard this week, because the field of references expanded right alongside you. You did not decide to enter this system of continuous recalibration. It operates as infrastructure, invisible, automatic, and so constant that it looks like reality instead of a design choice. Let us name what is happening in terms the system would prefer you not use. It does not compare achievements so that you improve. It compares achievements so that you remain in the cycle. These are fundamentally different objectives, and confusing them is exactly what the system needs you to do. Improving has a possible destination. It is a narrative with an arc, with an arrival, with a point where you can say, "I got here." Remaining in the cycle does not. It is perpetual motion disguised as progress. It is pushing the boulder with increasingly refined technique while the top moves upward at the same speed you climb. Camus saw the absurd as the philosophical condition of human existence, something that has no solution, only awareness. What the modern environment did was transform the absurd into a product. You do not merely live the impossibility of permanent satisfaction, You pay for content that teaches you to be more efficient within that impossibility. You hire coaches to optimize the race without questioning the direction. You access platforms that monetize every millimeter of the distance between where you are and where the system suggests you should be. The Camusian absurd was packaged, priced, and sold back to you as the solution to the absurd. You get a raise. It is not small. It is the result of years of recognized work. For a few days, the number feels real. It feels like the arrival you had been waiting for. Then you find out what someone in your field with a similar trajectory is making. Slightly more, maybe 10%, maybe 20%. And the number that felt sufficient begins to feel like the bare minimum, not because the number changed, because the reference changed. The modern comparison environment is not a fixed ruler. It is a floor that automatically rises every time you rise along with it. Camus described a boulder that rolls back every time Sisyphus reaches the top. The modern system is more sophisticated. It moves the top upward before you get there. And it calls the constant pushing healthy ambition. Think about what would happen to the cycle of consumption, comparison, and engagement if you felt genuinely satisfied for long enough. If the achievement you made last month still felt sufficient today, without needing a new reference to position yourself against, you would stop consuming content about how to reach the next level. You would stop comparing trajectories. You would stop engaging with the metrics the system uses to keep you in motion. A permanently satisfied individual is, from the perspective of the structural comparison system, a malfunction, not of your personal functioning, but of the functioning of the cycle. So the system ensures, through continuous recalibration of references and the systematic filling of every pause with a new stimulus, that satisfaction is always temporary, not as a side effect, as the intended outcome. Camus said the absurd settles into the space between what you expect and what the world offers. But the absurd can only be seen and can only generate lucidity when you have enough space to feel that space. Enough silence for the discrepancy to become perceptible. The modern system was built precisely to eliminate that pause. Every second without stimulus is filled before the silence can speak. You do not have time to notice the boulder rolled back because you are already pushing again. And the act of pushing is being called productivity, growth, evolution. The existential exhaustion that accompanies success does not come from pushing too hard. It comes from never having had enough space to notice that you are pushing. The system does not fear your dissatisfaction. It fears your perception of it. Let us deepen the point where the diagnosis becomes truly disturbing. There is a dominant narrative about the emptiness that accompanies success. You have heard some version of this narrative. It says the problem is internal, that you need to work on your gratitude, practice presence, redefine what success means to you in a more authentic way, more aligned with your deepest values. Slow down, reconnect, integrate. That narrative is not entirely false, but it is incomplete in a specific way that serves the system. Because as long as the diagnosis is individual, as long as the problem is that you do not know how to appreciate what you have, that you have not done the necessary inner work, that you have not found your purpose, you keep consuming the solutions the market offers for the individual problem. Books on gratitude, retreats to reconnect with yourself, meditation platforms, purpose coaches who charge by the hour to help you relate better to your achievements within the same system that produces the dissatisfaction. None of that is necessarily bad, but none of it touches the structural mechanism, because it was not designed to do that. It was designed to make you more functional within the cycle, not to reveal that the cycle is the source of the problem. The structural mechanism is this. The modern comparison environment does not merely expose your achievements to the gaze of others. It continuously recalibrates them against a shifting field of references that always expands at the same speed you advance. You are not in a fixed state of comparison. You are in a system of dynamic comparison that automatically adjusts to keep you always positioned slightly below what seems reachable. Not because anyone planned to harm you, but because that positioning is what maintains engagement. And engagement is what maintains the system. Camus understood that human beings want meaning, and the world does not offer it. What the 21st century added is a system that simulates the offer of meaning through metrics, rankings, social validation, recognition notifications, without ever actually delivering it. You are not merely facing the philosophical absurd that Camus described. You are facing a monetized absurd, packaged with the aesthetic of growth and sold back to you as the solution to the very gap it created. Think about how much of your time over the past 6 months was spent producing things you will use as a reference point to produce more things. Not as ends in themselves, as means toward a next means that will generate the following means. Sisyphus's boulder does not roll back. The boulder is sold to you as the next objective, and you buy it. Not out of naivety, because the system was built so that not buying seems more costly than buying. Here is what is really happening, with the utmost available precision. The emptiness you feel after achieving is not a sign that you achieved the wrong thing. It is not a sign that you need more self-knowledge before allowing yourself to achieve more. It is not ingratitude, nor emotional immaturity, nor a lack of purpose. It is the correct functioning of a system that was built to produce exactly that emptiness. Let us name the mechanism without euphemism. The existential exhaustion that accompanies success is not a side effect of the system. It is its central product. A genuinely satisfied individual is an individual who has stopped feeding the cycle of comparison, consumption, and recalibration, and the cycle cannot stop. So the system ensures, through continuous structural comparison, permanent recalibration of references, and the systematic filling of every pause with a new stimulus, that satisfaction is always temporary, not as a design flaw, as intentional design. Camus imagined Sisyphus happy because he understood that the only way out of the absurd is lucidity about it, seeing clearly the mechanism in operation without illusion about an arrival that does not exist. It does not resolve the situation, but it changes the position of the one who inhabits it. The modern system is more sophisticated than the original mythological absurd. It does not need Sisyphus to be unhappy. It only needs him to keep pushing, and to ensure that it transforms the boulder into a trophy, the top into a new minimum threshold, and the eternal restart into a narrative of sustainable personal growth. You are not failing to be grateful for what you have. You are not discovering that you chose the wrong life. You are living the main product of a system that needs what you have to never feel like enough, because permanent sufficiency interrupts the cycle, and the cycle cannot be interrupted. This is not abstract philosophy. It is the mechanism operating right now as you watch this, in the same environment that produced the gap that brought you here. So let us name what you saw in this video, with precision, without ornament. It is not that you are too ambitious. It is that the environment converted your ambition into fuel for a cycle that has no destination, only motion. It is not that you do not know how to appreciate what you have. It is that the structural comparison system continuously recalibrates what enough means, ensuring the measuring stick moves at the same speed you advance. It is not that your achievements are small. It is that the mechanism transforms them into new floors before you have had time to inhabit them as arrivals. Camus said that the absurd is not the problem, it is the condition. What changes when you see it clearly is not the objective situation. It is the position of the one who inhabits it. Sisyphus does not stop pushing the boulder after he understands the absurd, but he pushes knowing it is absurd. And that awareness, that lucidity about the mechanism, is the only kind of freedom available within a condition that cannot be resolved. What the modern system does is more sophisticated and, in a certain sense, more cruel than the original mythological absurd. It ensures that you never arrive at lucidity, that every pause is filled before the absurd can be felt, that you keep pushing without ever having the space to realize the boulder was designed to roll back, and that, when the exhaustion appears, it is diagnosed as an individual problem to be solved with greater efficiency, not as a structural symptom of a system that does not want you to stop. Think now about all the achievements ahead of you, the next project, the next promotion, the next financial milestone, the next level of whatever you use as a reference to measure where you are and where you should be. Each of them will happen within the same system. Each will be exposed to the same field of dynamic comparison that continuously recalibrates references. Each will be processed by the same mechanism that transforms arrivals into new starting points before you have had time to register them as arrivals. That does not change because you understood the mechanism, but something changes when you see it. The system does not change. The system continues operating with the same structural efficiency. The measuring stick keeps moving. The references keep expanding. The boulder keeps being designed to roll back. What changes is that you come to know you are inside a structure, and knowing you are inside a structure, naming the mechanism, recognizing its operation at the moment it happens within your own experience, is the only kind of lucidity the system cannot sell back to you as a product, because it does not feed the cycle. It creates critical distance from the cycle. It is not an exit. There is no complete exit from a structural condition, but it is the difference between being moved by the system without knowing it and being moved by the system while knowing you are being moved. Camus did not offer peace. He did not promise that the absurd would go away once you saw it. What he offered was clarity about the condition, and clarity about the condition is fundamentally different from a solution to the condition. You will still achieve things. You will still feel the gap afterward. You will still notice the boulder rolling back before the celebration has ended. The difference is that now you know the boulder was designed to roll, and that is not information about you. It is information about the system. Camus said that Sisyphus must be imagined happy, not because the condition is good, not because the absurd is something to be celebrated or resolved, but because lucidity about the condition, seeing without illusion what is happening, is the only position from which it is possible to inhabit reality without being destroyed by it. What happens to your relationship with your achievements when you stop believing that the next one will finally close the gap? I do not have the answer. Camus did not have it either, and he would not have offered it even if he had, because practical answers to structural questions are the way the market found to profit from the absurd without ever having to face it. What I can say is that this is the kind of question that is not answered with additional information. It is the kind that is inhabited with more or less lucidity, with more or less awareness of the mechanism that is operating while you live. And inhabiting a question with lucidity is fundamentally different from not knowing the question exists. The system does not need your ingratitude to function. It does not need you to be openly unhappy. It does not need you to know that you are dissatisfied. It only needs you to keep going, keep comparing, keep recalibrating, keep consuming the next level before inhabiting the current one. And now you see the mechanism behind it. Antidote does not offer a solution to what you saw. There are no next steps. There is no action list for freeing yourself from structural comparison. There is only clarity about the structure, which is the only kind of power the comparison system cannot absorb back as a product. Subscribe to the channel, not because it will fix anything, but because accumulated lucidity is different from isolated lucidity. And Antidote exists to keep naming, video by video, what the system would prefer to remain nameless. Antidote philosophy, not to free you from the cycle, so that you know exactly which cycle you are in.